Welcome to the Dr. Stacy Show, where we're talking about all things faith, love, and wellness as it relates to parenting and raising kids. I'm your host, Dr. Stacy, and today we have a wonderful guest. I am pleased to welcome to our show Dr. Archana Shrestha. She is a board certified ER physician, employee wellness expert, keynote speaker, and certified life coach. She's the Chief Wellness Officer at Physician Wellness Solutions and the Mama Doc School. After more than a decade on the front lines of medicine, working in high stress emergency rooms while also raising two kids, she experienced double burnout and realized that it cannot be solved by self care alone. She's the creator of Body, Heart, and Mind Framework and the author of the forthcoming book, The Thrival Code, where she teaches critical skills to high achieving professionals. We are so excited to have you here with us today.
Thank you, Stacy. So great to be here.
So I'm just going to dive right in because then in our pre-show we were talking, and I'm super excited for our parents, for folks that are listening. Tell us a little bit about what you experienced and how this turned into a new passion when it comes to burnout.
Yeah, Stacy, it's an interesting story. I went into emergency medicine, so excited for it. And it was what I really wanted to do. I was incredibly passionate. I loved the energy, the adrenaline, getting to really make an impact in people's lives. There were literally days where we were saving lives, and I absolutely loved it. It was the only thing I could imagine that I wanted to do. And it was great. I became a board certified physician. I was working for many years. But then things started to kind of fall apart when I became a parent. Adding on that additional role of being a parent led to what I call the second shift. I would go to my first shift working in the ER, which was already a very stressful job, a very high pressure environment, high stakes environment. I was working nights, evenings, holidays. And then I would go home to the second shift of taking care of family and all the home and family responsibilities that oftentimes tend to fall more so on the shoulders of women. And while I have an incredibly supportive husband, I felt the need to do it all myself, to try to be a superwoman, a super mom, and I was trying to do all the things: the cooking, the cleaning, the childcare, the planning, the birthday parties, taking my kids to all their appointments and activities. I wanted to do all of those things. But then I found myself experiencing burnout. And it was not only professional burnout from my high stress job, but it was also parental burnout. And I went on to call that double burnout. And I tried a lot of the things that most of us try when we're in burnout. We're told to do more self-care. So I dove deep into self-care, really prioritizing my sleep, getting better nutrition, exercising more. And while that did help to a degree, I still found myself in burnout. And I know this because I would actually they would give us these burnout surveys at work, and I would always come up high risk. And then I had a professional rock bottom moment where my medical director, my boss, all of a sudden called me. I got the dreaded phone call of, Archana, is everything okay with you? We're getting complaints from nurses, and that's not like you. And I was so incredibly embarrassed and shocked and couldn't even believe that, because it wasn't like me. I had always gotten along wonderfully with team members, but that feedback made me realize there's still more work to do. And while I couldn't fully understand why I was still burnt out, given all the self-care I was doing, that led me on a journey to explore further. And what I finally came to realize is that self-care is not enough for addressing burnout, and that burnout really has three components to it. It's really three types of exhaustion, which is physical, mental, and emotional exhaustion. And I think of it like a three-legged stool. If any one of those legs are missing, then we fall back into burnout. So we have to address the physical, the mental, and emotional pieces of burnout and exhaustion. And that's how I started to develop a framework that now I get to teach to others. And it's called the Body, Heart, Mind framework, which really gives people the three critical skills that we all need to learn in order to successfully recover from burnout.
And I love that you even the idea, because when we talk about self-care, right? Even as therapists, most people are like, go get a massage, but that only covers the physical. You might be in therapy, even the idea of handling maybe your mental and emotional, but right, thinking about all three of those components together is what's needed to prevent burnout. And I just love that you called it the second shift, because some of us are like, yeah, it's second shift and third shift, the weekend shift, right? It never ends. And the idea of having professional jobs and degrees and also working and being a mom, yeah, we do try to put on the superhero cape, right? And say,
Yeah.
do all things. Talk to us a little bit about those three skills that you feel like maybe we weren't even taught, because I think that's huge when it comes to parenting and even us trying to parent.
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of the things that I often talk about is these three skills that most of us never learned. And the three skills have to do with the first one with our body and how to take great care of ourselves, our physical body. And instead of calling it self care, I call it self stewardship. And the reason I call it that is because self care has a lot of different kind of myths surrounding it, right? That self-care is optional, first of all, that it is things like massages or manicures or pedicures and vacations. And don't get me wrong, I love all of those things. I love a spa day. I love to go
Yeah.
get my nails done. I love vacations. But those are more occasional things and sporadic, and they're not things that we're doing daily.
Mhm.
And so I like to use the word self stewardship because self stewardship really is about being a good steward of your body, just like we're a good steward of our car. We get the oil change, we get the brakes checked. Um, we're good stewards of our houses, doing maintenance. We're good stewards of our money. We need to be good stewards of our body too. So self-care seems optional, but self-stewardship is physiologic. These are our physiologic needs. If you look at the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, our physiologic needs are at the very bottom, right? And these are very basic things: need for sleep, for nutrition, for water, for rest, for shelter. And a lot of times we are skipping those things and trying to jump to the top of the triangle, which is self-actualization, which is being our best self, our best version of ourselves, and all the big goals we have, while not really addressing the bottom of the triangle. And the way the hierarchy works is that you have to address the first level, the base, before you can move up to the higher levels. So it's imperative that we prioritize our sleep, get the right amount of sleep that we need for ourselves, get in movement, healthy nutrition, drinking plenty of water, and all the other things that we really need. We need connection, social connection, right? We need time for vacations, for doing fun things that we enjoy. And so that's really critical that we develop those self stewardship skills and really develop a routine that's sustainable for us. And then the second part is the heart and the body, heart, mind framework. And that really addresses emotional processing and emotional resilience. And I like to call this emotional bounce. And I like the idea of, I'm an athlete, a former athlete. I played tennis growing up and even in college. And, just the idea of a tennis ball bouncing, and the idea that when I was playing competitive tennis, if I had a bad serve or a bad point that I just lost, I needed to quickly bounce back from that
Mm.
feeling of defeat or frustration and get my head back in the game to win the next point, right? To keep moving forward. And so I think athletes recognize this. I've got a son who's in basketball that, hey, you miss a shot, you got to keep going. Like, you got to get back down to the other end of the court and play defense now. And so, or you take another shot, right? So there's a lot of that discussion happening in the athletic space, but I think it can also be applied generally. So in my case, being in the ER, I would literally have patients die sometimes, right? Like, we would have a code blue come in and we would try to resuscitate the patient for 45 minutes, an hour, to no avail. And unfortunately, the patient would die. Yet I had to get back out there and see the whole rest of the ER because there were patients piling up, right? Like waiting now for 45 minutes for a doctor to see them because we had all been in that room taking care of that patient. So I had to learn the skill of how do I quickly get back into the game and not let that completely, shut me down for the rest of the day. And so the way I like to think about it is like imagine dropping a ball of putty on the floor and it just sticks there, right? Versus a tennis ball, it's going to bounce back up. So, this is the skill of emotional resilience, emotional processing. And I can tell you for sure, for a lot of us physicians, especially, we did not learn how to process our emotions. We just learned to stuff them down constantly. And, Stacy, that of course, that doesn't work.
Right.
The emotions come up some way or somehow, whether that's physical pain in our body or
Yes.
whether that's through turning to something else outside of us to numb the pain, alcohol. It could be food, it could be social media, it could be a variety of different things. Pick your poison, right? And so we have to learn how to process. We have to learn how to process our emotions so that we can keep moving forward. So I like to call that emotional balance and learning how to recover faster. I mean, there may be times where we want to linger in a negative emotion, and that's okay. But if we actually don't want to linger in it for very long and we want to move out of it and through it, that's a critical skill.
Mhm.
The third piece is the mind and addressing mental exhaustion,
Mhm.
which comes from a lot of thinking. We're thinking a lot about different things. We're ruminating. We are have a lot of default thinking patterns, maybe things that we were conditioned to think growing up or coming up through different careers or professionals that we were around, family members, friends. There's a lot of default thinking. So this is the skill of really what I like to call thinking on purpose. And this is the skill of really doing thought work and really looking at our thoughts and seeing which ones serve us and which ones don't. And this is metacognition, as you know, I'm sure, Stacy. But it's really starting to look at those and really understanding which ways and which patterns of thinking are helping me and which ones are actually creating more burnout for myself.
And I love the easy way of saying heart, mind, and body, right? Or body, heart, and mind, right? And thinking about
Mhm.
how we meet those needs. And it's interesting because even as a clinician, when we do like an intake, for example, right? We're going to start with your basic needs, right? Are you getting sleep? Are you eating? What's your medical history look like? And then we're talking about the mind and the thoughts and the emotions. And so I love putting that all together for families. When you think about that parent that's in, that second shift kind of mindset, how would they use these three skills? Like, how would you encourage? Because I love how you said even the idea of stewardship, right? This is a daily thing that we do. What would be kind of the way that you kind of teach folks to use these three skills each day?
Yeah, absolutely. And I will be happy to dive into that. But before, I do want to just share that this is a very real phenomenon happening to parents. And,
Mhm.
before we met today, I was just looking up some statistics that globally, 5% of parents report burnout. When they did like an official burnout survey, which is sort of like diagnostic for clinical burnout. But in the United States, that rate is higher. It's actually 8 to 9%. And there was in this study, they argued that that is more common, it's more prevalent in individualistic societies like ours in the United States. In other countries, there's more of that whole concept of it takes a village to raise a child
Mhm.
and to raise a
Yeah.
family. But here in the United States, we don't necessarily have that mindset or those support systems. But, nearly half of parents report overwhelming stress most days. That's another statistic. And 65% of working parents report burnout in 2025. So this is a very common phenomenon. What I experienced, my career seemed fairly manageable, because I had that downtime when I was away from work where I could rest and recuperate and take care of myself, do things I enjoyed. But when I added on the second shift, that's when it all started. The wheel sort of fell off, right? And so this is a very common phenomenon. So if you are listening and you are a working parent, especially high achievers, like we're so driven and mission driven, we want to make such a big impact. We want to, excel in our career and advance, then this is highly likely that you might be experiencing it. So how do we start to what are some of the practical things that we can do?
Mhm.
And, I really like to break it up, like, what's something that you can do practically for your self-stewardship, and really thinking about the Pareto principle or the 80-20 rule, which says
Mhm.
that there's usually 1 or 2 things that can give you 80% of your results. So really
Yeah.
looking at that for yourself. What is the 1 or 2 things that if you did consistently would really fill your cup? I like to say that the best way to give is by giving from the overflow. So instead of pouring into other people's cup by depleting yourself, what if we filled your cup so much so that it's just overflowing with energy and you can give from that. And I believe that that is true giving is by giving by from the overflow. And so what are the couple of things that you could do that would really help energize you? And this is going to be different for everybody. For me, sleep is really important. For me, movement is really important. And if I'm getting those two things in, like I'm feeling pretty good. Like I have good patience throughout the day. I have more emotional resilience. I'm more, I can get more done and I can give people the best of me instead of the rest of me. So, really just looking at what are those couple of things for you and really starting to build that into your routine, schedule it, and you show up for it just like it's a meeting with your boss.
Yeah.
So, that would be for the body. For the heart, is really just understanding like what are the emotions I'm even feeling, starting to recognize them and practicing a way to move through them. And there's so many different ways of processing emotions. I teach in my courses and in the book that I'm writing, I teach a method called the H&P method, which has to do with history. It's called history and physical method. And a history and physical is that thing that the doctor does with you anytime you go to them as a
Mhm.
patient. So if you go to them saying, "I have stomach pain," they're gonna ask you a series of questions. That's called a history. And then
Mhm.
they're gonna check your stomach and your abdomen. They're gonna press on it. They're gonna listen to it. Okay, that's called a physical. So I teach a method called the H&P method, which allows people to process through an emotion in just a couple of minutes by essentially identifying what is the emotion I'm feeling
Mhm.
right now.
Yeah.
Stress. Okay. What does the stress feel like? What part of your body do you feel it in? Does it move anywhere? Do you have any other associated symptoms? So that's exactly the same thing your doctor's asking you when you tell them you have abdominal pain. So you're taking the time to really feel it and understand what it is in your body, where you're feeling it in your body. And then the physical part is where you just stay in your body and you allow yourself to feel it.
Mm.
And what I tell people to do is to imagine they're standing at the shore of the beach and this wave of emotions are just washing over their feet, just their feet are in the water, visualizing that. And with each receding wave, part of that emotion is being taken away. So it's lessening. And I have them just deep breaths in, deep breaths out for about 10 breaths or so. And the other thing I should have mentioned is that I have them rate the intensity at the beginning and then rate it again at the end. So just like when your doctor says, "How bad's your pain?" And you say,
Mhm.
out of 10, it's a 8, and then at the end, maybe they give you some pain medicine, it goes away. So the same thing here. We are going to rate it at the beginning and then rate it at the end. And when I teach people this method, usually their intensity of their emotion goes down significantly. So a lot of times it goes away. But those are not the only ways of processing an emotion. There's so many other ways, talking to someone, movement, journaling. I like to do what's called thought downloads and get all the thoughts out of my head as to why I'm feeling this way. So, a great thing you can do at the top of the page is just write, "I'm stressed because," and just get all the thoughts out of your head. And that can be really therapeutic as well. And then for the final piece of the mind is, thinking on purpose and really just becoming aware of your thoughts. And even adding a phrase like, "I notice I'm thinking that I'm no good at this. I
Mhm.
notice I'm thinking my child's a pain in the butt." Or just really looking at, "I notice I'm thinking that work is so hard," right? So just becoming aware of our thoughts can be really helpful. And again, you can do a thought download here and really look at these thoughts and look at the ones that are serving and which ones are not. And I like to just list them all out on a piece of paper. I have a process that I teach, which is to just, let's say you write down all your thoughts on a piece of paper And then you go through and you just circle the facts. Like, what are the actual facts here? And sometimes I'll have an entire sheet of paper and realize there's only like 2 facts. And the rest of it is my optional thoughts, the
Mhm.
optional story that I'm creating about it. And so I'll go through and start crossing out things like optional unintentional thoughts is what I'll write next to it, and it says OUT, that spells OUT. So I'll cross it out
Mm.
and remind myself like, "Hey, this is the story I've created. This is the meaning I've assigned to these facts." And that probably doesn't help me. And what do I want to think instead? So, the thought download and doing some thought work is a really helpful skill.
I love this. And it's so, for me, it's so comparable to what we do in treatment with CBT therapy, right? And we think about the thoughts and we think about the behaviors and how that all comes together. And what I really do love is this is something that when we're talking about parents and the not just high achieving careers, but we also become parents in the social context of high achieving with our kids in sports and activities. And then, you
Yeah.
pile on all the things that we do, even in that parenting space, and to say daily, let's pause. Let's look at what's going on with our thoughts. Let's look at what's going on with our heart, our emotions, our body. I love that intentionality for parents because we aren't taught that. I tease people in my book, Love Our Babies Well. We talk about young families. And did we talk about, growing up, how to balance having a family? And then we look at our kids when they start having family and their children, and we're like, okay, they need grandmom support, they need help, they need, but again, it's also learning how to have a sense of tools. And I love that that's what you do, even with the Thrival Code. Talk to us a little bit about your Thrival Code coaching program and how that can help parents.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Thrival Code coaching program is for anybody who's experienced burnout, whether that's professional burnout, parental burnout, caregiver burnout. This is a program to help you implement these skills to really look at the body, the heart, and mind. Because the thing about burnout is it pretty much impacts every domain of your life. It impacts your health, it impacts your relationships, it impacts how you're doing at work. And in order to truly recover, we need to address all those domains, and we need to address all 3 pieces of burnout: the physical, the mental, and emotional exhaustion. So in the Thrival Code coaching program, I teach these skills further and we apply it directly to your life. You get an opportunity. It's an 8-week program. And in those 8 weeks, people have significant turnarounds. And this is without quitting their job, giving up their kids for adoption, or going down on hours. So the thing is, and I believe that we don't necessarily have to change our circumstances.
Mhm.
We can work through them, right? Like we probably don't want to give up our kids. Many of us probably don't want to quit our jobs. And maybe we also don't want to go part-time because we don't want to have
Mhm.
that pay cut, right? And
Right.
so what I like to encourage people is like, hey, you may decide to leave at the end of the day, your job, and that's fine. That's completely up to you. But how about we work through the thoughts and the emotions first and see if we can work with what we've got? If not, then that's fine. You can still leave, right? But so the goal is really to teach these critical skills, how to take care of your body well, first and foremost. I don't want to tell people you're fine, just change your thoughts when you're sleeping 2 hours a night. Like, we need to get that sorted out. We need to make sure because your sleep could make a massive difference in how you feel if you prioritize it, right? So, we first of all address the body, develop a sustainable self-stewardship routine. Second, we dive into the heart and understanding how to process our emotions and how to work through them, right? Instead of what I call buffering, right? Turning to something outside of us to neutralize, whether that's alcohol, it could be drugs, it could be food, it could be social media. So instead of turning to these things to buffer away the emotions, let's process through them. And let's also not suppress them. We need to actually work through them. And then the third piece is the mind, and I teach the skills of thought work and thinking on purpose and letting go of our secret rule books that we might have for how things are supposed to go and how exactly our kids are supposed to behave and how everything was supposed to turn out, right? We have a lot of thoughts about that can create a lot of pain and steal our joy. And
Yeah.
so we dive into all of those skills, and then we have group coaching, and you get group coaching with me so that I can help you apply this to your life. And also there's private coaching opportunities too for people who want to discuss certain things privately. There's that as well. So it's a really remarkable program. It's for everybody. People feel massive shifts in just those 8 weeks. So it's a very rewarding program to have.
I love that. And so, if what would be, as we close up, what would be your final thought, final tip? What would be something that you want parents to take away from this conversation today?
Yeah. I want them to know that they're not broken and you're just going through a challenging time in life and that this is a season, right? This is a very busy season of life where especially if you have young kids, I would say like those preteen years is a very busy time because they need a lot of physical attention from you and you have to kind of watch very closely. But even in the teen years, then there's a lot of emotional drama happening, right? And kids testing the boundaries and limitations and then us as parents having to guide back, right? So the big message that I would have is that you're not broken. All you
Mhm.
need to learn is some skills that are really going to help, the
Yeah.
skills that really address the body, the heart, and the mind, the self stewardship, the emotional balance, and thinking on purpose. And when you have those 3 skills that most of us never learned, you will feel significantly different. You will feel happier. You will feel more connected with your family. You'll have more joy again in your work. And I have seen this work when people learn these skills. It has saved careers, it's saved lives, it's saved marriages, and it's truly going to save the next generation because it is so incredibly important that what we are role modeling for our kids.
Mhm.
I grew up with a parent who was in burnout. She didn't even know it. But would that burnout would show up at home and I called it her dragons.
Mhm.
And I often felt and then I had my personal rock bottom moment where I was showing up that way with my own kids. And I said, "Oh my god, this is not the person I wanna be. This is not the mother I wanna be." And I don't want my kids to fear me and be afraid of me, and nor do I want them to do this to their kids, to the next generation. So it's really important that we address our own dragons, right?
Mhm.
And slay them through having a methodology, through having an approach. And the Thrival Code gives people that so that you can really role model for yourself, for role model this for the next generation as to how to balance out their life and career and personal life as well.
I love that. I love that. So before you go, I have all of my guests humor me because this is my Laffy Taffy joke of the day. Because in Proverbs 17:22, we say, joyful heart is good medicine. So I have a Laffy Taffy joke. You ready? All right.
Mhm. I'm ready.
What lies at the bottom of the ocean and twitches? What lies at the bottom of the ocean and twitches?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of thinking of an earthquake or a tsunami, but that's probably not the answer.
No, no, close. Here we go. A nervous wreck.
I love that.
All all right, dear. So tell our audience, how can they get in touch with you? What are your socials? How can people follow you, get the Thrival Code, get your coaching? Tell people how to get in touch with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you can go to thrivalcode.com. It's THRIVAL code, CODE.com to learn more about the Thrival Code coaching program. And also, if you'd like to find out when my book is being released, there's a button there you can click to get on the email list. You can also find me on social media at the Thrival Code. It's at the Thrival Code. And if you are looking for a speaker for workshops, for retreats on burnout recovery, how to get out of survival mode and shift into thrival mode, you can reach me at physicianwellnesssolutions.com.
I love that. And so, folks, before we go, we're going to turn into our Love the Babies Well segment. And today we really talked about this idea of burnout. And parenting comes with burnout, definitely that second shift that happens for us. And one thing I want us to remember, though, that our children are our assignment. And so when we think about them being a gift from God, they are our assignment with all of their parts and pieces. But parents, even as we heard today, you're not broken, you're equipped. And sometimes we have to take a moment, pause, be intentional about repairing the things that we need to be able to continue this journey of parenting. Our kids definitely need us not to be the dragon, but to be the love, the support, and the care that they need in their lives. Thanks for tuning in today to the Dr. Stacy Show. Until next time, keep the faith, love the babies, and pursue wellness.